So if I'm putting $1,000 a month into my stock portfolio, in your opinion, would that $1,000 a month be better off, buying some life insurance like you're talking about?
It's a great question. So the first, I would ask a question behind that.
Okay.
I would say, what is your ultimate objective that you're trying to accomplish? Because here's what we would say is in most cases, people putting money directly into a stock portfolio is a money trap.
Okay.
And why do I say that? Because we have to remember how are we keeping score? If we're trying to get financial freedom, we're saying, I want more passive income than I have monthly expenses.
Mhm.
And I would say, okay, I'm putting $1,000 a month in the stock portfolio. And let's say the stocks are going really well. They're going up and to the right.
Mhm.
Am I creating any passive income from that today?
Hey there, and welcome to Money and You. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host. My search for more fulfilling work led me to career and business coaching, where I stumbled upon a game-changing discovery. Money issues often start with our mindset and habits. You see, our relationship with money is the key to overcoming those frustrating financial obstacles. As an entrepreneur, coach, and problem solver, I'm passionate about helping you create a great relationship with money. Because, turns out, that's the foundation for a limit-free life. Each week on Money and You, I speak with amazing guests about all things money, mindset, practical tips, and everything in between. We're here to give you new insights, education, and empowerment so money can be one of your favorite relationships. So join us for some lively conversations and let's transform your financial life together. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Money and You Show. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host, and we are broadcasting along with ubngo.com. And thank you, UBN, for your help. And I want to get started pretty quickly here because we have another great guest on today. I just love the variety of topics that our guests are bringing to light for people, and super excited to speak today with Joey Murray. He's co-founder and partner at Wealth Without Wall Street, an online community that seeks to re-educate business owners and families on how money truly works. Wall Street is not just a street in New York that puts Americans' money at risk, but it's also a commonly taught mindset. Wealth Without Wall Street exists to help people who want to become financially free without ever having to invest through Wall Street or become debt-free. Joey, thank you so much. I'm so happy to have you here today. This is going to be a great discussion. And, after reading your bio, you're so aligned, I think, with this show. And, there are a lot of people talking about financial freedom out there, but sometimes it's just a phrase, it's a catchphrase. And with others, like the kind folks who come on my show, it's there, there's actually a pathway and a lot of thought behind what that really means, and experience as well in helping people actually do that. So can you tell us a little more about your background and how you got to be doing this?
Absolutely, Michelle. It's always good to be with like-minded people. And so this is not work for me. It's a privilege. I was stuck in the corporate grind for 11 years in the mortgage business. And I didn't even realize that I was in the middle of the rat race for a long time. And what I mean by that is I was in this position where I was making lots of money. I was making more and more income, but it really didn't give me any sort of fulfillment or freedom that I had originally thought higher income equals more freedom. In fact, it was quite the opposite. I think, before the show, I told you that my daughter was the one that painted these pictures in my background, but I have 5 daughters. I don't think I shared that part with you.
Oh.
And, I remember as I was getting older, we were having more kids. I was getting less and less and less time with them. And I was telling them, I'm working for you. But it really, kind of shook me when they were younger. We'd go to the beach. And this is a very common story for high level entrepreneurs, but for me, it was a wake up call. We're at the beach and I told my wife and kids, I was like, you guys go on down to the beach. I'll be right behind you. I just have to take one more call. And I know everybody's nodding their head like, yep, been there. And what happened? 4 hours later,
Oh,
I'm walking down that boardwalk behind the beach house, and there goes my wife and those beautiful girls walking back the other way, but their faces were just full of regret, disappointment, discouragement. There's dad. He's physically in our presence, but he is nowhere to be found. Like mentally, emotionally, he's miles away. And what it was is, I didn't know it at the time, Michelle, but I was the only asset at work in my family.
yeah.
There was no money at work. Money was not working as hard as I was. And so therefore, I had no freedom. I had to keep my foot on the gas pedal because as soon as I let up, what happened? That next deal didn't come in the door. That next deal didn't close. I was chasing. That's exactly what the rat race is. And something had to change. I didn't know the answer at the time, but over the course of the next several years, I learned some things, changed the trajectory, and that has led to what is now Wealth Without Wall Street, where we're helping people to get to financial freedom as fast as possible.
Yeah. Oof, lot there. I love that. Financial freedom is a really interesting term, and it's Googled a lot, it's out there a lot. But it's so individual. So what constitutes financial freedom for one person is a very different thing from somebody else. I mean, a person with 5 daughters being financially free is a different thing than a single 30-year-old, somewhere in a big city. I mean, it's just, you have to spend that time, I feel, really trying to define it for yourself. And I think most people don't. They're just, they get on that treadmill and they get into the rat race. And once you're in it, there's not that much time to sit and contemplate your life. I mean, I do vividly remember that from my corporate days. As an entrepreneur, I resist it a little, but I'm always told, have a few hours a week that are just your visioning time. Go outside and sit under a tree with your notepad and write your ideas. I mean, unless you have that space, you can't get creative. You can't figure out what financial freedom really is, not what, this kind of illusion that's out there. And you bring up a great point, because I love talking about mindset and this idea that hard work, you know, equals more money is a huge one that we grew up with. Go to school, work hard, and everything's going to be fine. And but it's not actually a good mindset. I mean, to put it as simply as possible, because you can work yourself to death or to a point where you're not seeing your family, and it doesn't equate to more money.
No, in fact, I remember this. The fact that you just said that made me think of this. I was at Wells Fargo at the time, and I was a branch manager, but there was one guy above me, and then there was a guy above him, the regional manager. And I remember like thinking, oh man, I could move up in the company and all this sort of stuff. I actually had spent time with the regional manager personally. And actually, the more I got to know about him, I didn't really like him very much. Like I didn't really like his lifestyle to begin with. And then that wasn't like, totally putting me off, but literally a couple of years later, the guy died on a treadmill at a conference that he was traveling for work.
Oh,
Literally a heart attack, and he was like in his early 50s. And I remember thinking, man, the amount of stress that he must have been under that led to that. I don't want anything to do with that. Like that's not the future. Like that's not what I'm signing up for.
right.
And I think what you just said is I'm going to clarify one thing. You said people have to define financial freedom for themselves. They have to actually know their why, or what would they be doing if they were financially free. And I think that is a very personal thing, but I'll simplify it for everybody else listening. The formula is actually universal. It's actually, everybody can have the same formula. And that is, when your passive income exceeds your monthly expenses, you're financially free. I didn't come up with that. That's a Robert Kiyosaki. That's probably somebody before Robert Kiyosaki. But when you have more money coming in that you're not working for than your monthly expenses, you then get to pull up. I'm just sitting here looking at my phone. I get to pull up my phone, and all those little colored boxes, we're all used to doing it, right? We put them in there, but I get to put those boxes into those spaces. Like nobody else is actually placing those on my calendar on their behalf, because I'm not trading my time for their money.
Right.
I get to choose. That is what the definition and the formula gets you. And so our job is not to, make finances really complex and confusing. It's how can I create more passive income than I have monthly expenses?
Yeah.
And if you don't know those answers, you got to start with the formula, and then you can start making decisions in light of that line up with your personality and your training, your experiences, all those sort of things. So we can dive into all that, but I think Wall Street has tried to make this more complex than it is. And I want to simplify for everybody listening, because you can get there. It's actually much easier than they make it out to be.
Yeah, that is a great share, actually. And, I always like to go back to, because when I talk about hard work not equaling more money, I don't mean don't engage in hard work, because it's something it's one of my big values. I've been working hard since I was a teenager, and I do value that. I value it in my kids. I'm always like, go, you're working hard. But what you don't want to do, you want to be conscious. You want to be conscious of what you're doing, why. Like you said, you need to know your why. That is a huge part. You can have a vision, but if there's no why attached to it, it's easy to just let it go or not keep pursuing it. But yeah, so it is absolutely nothing wrong with hard work. That's actually a great thing. But to do it because you think it's somehow connected with, your bank account is just going to be going up and up if you just keep working hard. That's the piece. That's the mindset, I think, that needs to shift. And you obviously have created this with a completely different mindset. Like you can actually create all this income passively, and then you can choose what you put on your calendar for the rest of the time. So how did you actually go from, being working in the mortgage industry to getting here?
Oh, great question. It really, I told you about these kind of experiences that we're building in the background. Like, okay, one, this stinks to not be present with my family. Two, people ahead of me are dying early, at an early age because of stress and all this kind of stuff. And there was even more things, that I could get into, but I didn't know the answer at the time. And then I read a book in 2009 that totally shifted the way that I thought. I went from this, hey, Wall Street is the answer, and I can just put money there blindly and hope for the best. And, retirement is the answer. And like, eventually I could defer my life, and then eventually I'll have freedom of my time. But this book talked about taking control of our finances. It talked about becoming an investor ourselves, putting money into our control instead of abdicating it to an advisor, somebody else who had more, things behind their name that said that they're smarter than me and that they could, quote unquote, manage my money better than I could. All those things became like, wait a minute, why would I keep doing that? Like, I need to be the one in charge. I need to be, if someone ever said, man, you need to really consider your health, there's never an option to say, well, I just don't really know that much about health. And I'm just not that good at, knowing how to work out. And it's like, I can't abdicate that to somebody else. I can't say, hey, Michelle, could you just take care of, working out for me and eating right and all that? This doesn't happen. Well, I could get a trainer to help me, right, but I'm still the one that is responsible. I'm still the steward. I like to use the word steward. I'm the steward of my body. I'm the steward of my time. I'm the steward of the resources God has given me. And money is something I have to be the one to take control of. And so anyways, that started me on a whole path. And I started implementing the things from the book. 4 years later, I was like, this is making a dramatic difference for my family. And I got really passionate. I was like, I need to go teach people this. Like I need to get out of this career that I really loved at the time. To be honest, I really enjoyed it.
Right.
But I need to go and do something that's going to make a bigger impact in the world. And that was before I even knew what a podcast was. So it's super cool to see now, impacting thousands and thousands of people later. This was definitely the right step for me.
Yeah. Oh, so you have a podcast? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Wealth Without Wall Street. We started our podcast in 2017. So
Wow.
almost 600 episodes, I think, at this point.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Okay. That's great for people to know. And I'll put that in the show notes. But so what was like a first step?
Yeah. So the first step in this book, by the way, the book's called Become Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash. If
Okay.
you've never read it, highly recommend it. Nelson actually it was from Birmingham, Alabama, which is where I live.
Oh.
And it just happened that I read this book, and then he was here locally. We got to spend almost a decade being personally mentored by him. And I say we, me and my business partner, Russ, would go to lunch with him and go to conferences with him and stuff like that. So he was an amazing, amazing man, poured into us. And so one of the first things he talks about in the book is really thinking like a bank. You have to start capitalizing your life like a bank. And how do banks make money? Well, they make money off of deposits that they then go and lend to other people. They pay you for the use of your money and they make the spread, right? But then it begged the question, well, what does a bank do with their money? Right? The money that they profit, and most everybody knows they buy real estate, because they always have these big, beautiful buildings and marble, floors and all this sort of stuff. But the thing that most people don't know that he points out in the book is that they put almost double what they have in real estate into cash value life insurance.
Oh.
And I thought, I've always been told that's a bad thing, right? Like nobody puts money in life insurance. That's dumb. In fact, I even went to the people at Wells Fargo Bank and I said, hey, I'm reading about this book. This guy claims life insurance is like a good vehicle to store capital. And every one of these are executives at the bank that I worked at. They're always like, oh no, that's dumb. Nobody puts money in life insurance. And I pulled up, this is no joke, Michelle. I pull up the balance sheet of Wells Fargo Bank. And on line 41, they have $19.3 billion in cash value life insurance.
Wow. Okay.
And they only had $12 billion in real estate, to give you context.
Wow.
So almost double what they had in real estate, they had in cash value life insurance. And the people that were in the bank that I was talking to and interviewed about this idea were all insured by the bank.
Huh.
So they're sitting there saying this is a bad idea, and their employer is actually doing it. And so anyways, long story, I started following the blueprint, putting capital into these policies, growing cash value. And now all of a sudden, I didn't know what to do with it. I'm just going to be honest with you. I had no idea. I'm like, well, at least it's growing. It's tax-free. It's all these benefits. But I was like, now what? Like, I got to do something with this. And it's just started just stacking up all this cash. And that's really what led us to the podcast and creating, because we're like, we got to interview people who know what to do with money, like passive income. How do we create it? How do we know what sort of investor we are? Like what sort of opportunity, how could we get exposed to as many ideas as possible? We just started interviewing people, and that has led one thing to another. That has created now, we went from reporting to the world in 2020 that we only had $2,500 a month in passive income to over $50,000 a month now.
Wow.
And it's because of all the things we've learned in that span in between.
That is amazing. Okay. Very, very cool. Um, okay. So maybe can you give us a little short explanation, if there is a possible way to do that, on the cash value life insurance? Like if somebody's listening, I don't know what that is, I don't know how to do it. Um,
Yeah, I'll tell you this. It's not a short conversation,
yeah.
especially if you have people that want to get into like the really intricate details. But I'll tell you, think about it this way. It is a replacement of your savings vehicle. Okay. Because most people think savings accounts and that's where you store cash until you go use it for an investment or you go use it for like paying off a liability or something like that. Right.
Right.
Well, the things people know about savings accounts are what? They're safe.
Yeah.
Uh, they have some interest component, whether it's, 0.2% or whatever the case is,
Yeah.
and it's taxable and it's accessible, right? Those are about the only things we know.
Mhm.
Well, you compare that to a life insurance, a cash value life insurance policy, and we're talking about whole life here, not like index universal or any of those other types. You compare it to that. They're growing with a guaranteed rate of return, typically 3 to 5% over a long period of time. They have dividends that are also tax-free. So it's growing at that, but it's also growing tax-free. It's accessible either through withdrawals or a loan feature.
Mhm.
And it is typically creditor protected. But the key component is that you can always borrow against it with the insurance company. Like the insurance company gives you the ability, let's say I have $100,000 of cash value. I can borrow against that 100,000 as collateral, use the insurance company's money, go make an investment in something else. And now the investment is growing and my cash value is growing at the same time. So that's the difference between a savings account and this, because I take money out of my savings account to make the same investment. That money's no longer growing. The
Right.
investment is growing, right? Knock on wood. But the cash is no longer growing. And
Right.
so this allows us to do both of them at the same time. And you start to think about what's the real return whenever you start to stack this upon itself and you start doing, I think we have 16 different passive income streams. You start doing both of those at the same time, it gets really exciting really fast
Yeah.
to see the impact that your cash is going to have over your lifetime versus just your investment portfolio.
Mhm. Well, speaking of your investment portfolio, I'm going to ask you a question, and I don't want the audience to think whatever the answer is advice. This is curiosity on my part. Okay. So I don't, this is meant to open people's minds. And then if they're curious, they go to somebody with more expertise to find out, more basically. So if I'm putting $1,000 a month into my stock portfolio, in your opinion, would that $1,000 a month be better off, buying some life insurance like you're talking about?
It's a great question. So the first, I would ask the question behind that.
Okay.
I would say, what is your ultimate objective that you're trying to accomplish? Because here's what we would say is in most cases, people putting money directly into a stock portfolio is a money trap.
Okay.
And why do I say that? Because we have to remember how are we keeping score? If we're trying to get financial freedom, we're saying, I want more passive income than I have monthly expenses.
Okay.
And I would say, okay, I'm putting $1,000 a month in the stock portfolio. And let's say the stocks are going really well. They're going up and to the right.
Mm-hmm.
Am I creating any passive income from that today?
Not No, because it's just appreciating, right? It's like,
Right.
yeah.
So I'm not getting any cash flow from it today. So if it's not producing a passive income, is it reducing a monthly expense?
Hmm, interesting. Yeah.
It's
No,
not.
it's not. I mean, it's not doing either. So yeah.
So then it's just a matter of is it getting me closer to or further from financial freedom? It can only be one or the two. And here's the thing about it. You think about it. If the money is if the portfolio is going up and to the right, do I ever want to stop and take that money out or have it coming back towards me?
Yeah.
Answer, like psychologically,
No. Yeah.
no. I've got FOMO, right?
Yeah. Right.
I don't want to lose out.
Right.
But what if it's going down? Do I want to take money out at that time? Psychologically, no. I don't want to realize those losses.
Right.
Right. So we call it a money trap for that psychological purpose.
Yeah.
If it's growing or if it's losing, I'm just kind of stuck. Versus if I put the 1,000, this is just to answer the original question.
Yeah.
If I put the 1,000 into the cash value life insurance, it's growing cash value every single month that I can leverage into an asset that produces a passive income towards me that will create passive income, which will then get me closer to financial freedom. So it's not the life insurance is not a replacement investment.
Yeah.
It's a savings vehicle that then I use to create passive income. The investment account or the portfolio is an investment. It's just, does it actually help me get to financial freedom? And I would argue in most cases, no.
I love that answer. And I also am realizing another mindset that comes up for people, which comes up for me because my dad always would talk about, you want to play the long game. You want to make sure that you're saving for some distant future point. Yeah. So my dad was always, growing up, and I liked this advice, and because it applies to many things, not just money. But, you are always focusing on the long game, the future. So there's this idea that everything you're doing now isn't about cash flow today. It's about someday when you retire, if you want to retire, that everything happens at that point, at that juncture. What you do today will allow you to suddenly live some life post-retirement. And I really love what you're saying because it's a different mindset. It's, it is a very interesting way to look at it.
Well, I don't want to be in any way opposed to what your dad's advice is, because I don't want to ruffle any feathers. But I'll tell you, I completely
it's old advice too. It worked for him back. Right. I mean, he would be 95, so this is coming from a different era.
Well, but I mean, here's the thing: even just the concept of retirement. It tells us that we are meant at some stage in our life to be taken out of service.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't believe that at all. I mean, just inherently, Michelle has value to bring to this world, right? I have value to bring to this world, no matter what the age is or whatever. The idea is retirement was brought on from the industrial age to say, hey, you are essentially a cog in a wheel, and at some point you need to be replaced with a younger cog.
Yeah.
And that is a lie. I mean, you have much more value than what you do, but you can always bring value to this world. So the idea of retirement doesn't make sense. And number two, it also requires you to have the guarantee that tomorrow is going to be here.
Yeah.
Whereas what we do know is that our children are not going to want us around in the same capacity today that they do 20 years from now, or vice versa, right? I this is just a story I'll just share because it just impacted me so much. One of my daughters, she's number 4 for me. I was taking her to school one day, to like a preschool, and she's sitting back in the back. She's got her little harness on and her kid's seat, and she just talking away, because usually me and her don't get one-on-one time a lot, and so she's just soaking this up. She just yep. But then she says, Dad, you gonna pick me up from school today? And I was like, no, I can't pick you up today. Your mom's going to pick you up. And at first of all, I was a little bit like frustrated. She asked me because I'm like, she knows better than that. Like I rarely even get to take her to school. It's like a once in a lifetime thing because I'm busy working all the time. And so I said, no, your mom's going to pick you up. She says, why are you not going to pick me up? And I was like, well, I have to work. And she said, this is where it impacts. She said, why you have to work? And I mean, this is simple, innocent questions, right?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I have to pay for this car. I have to pay for our house. I have to pay for the food that we eat. She says, we already have a car. We already have a house. We already have groceries. And I said, that's where it clicked for me. It's like, she wants nothing more than dad to be with her.
Yeah.
She doesn't care about all this other stuff. She wants me. But I guarantee you 20 years from now, we're not going to be having this conversation.
Yeah.
Because she's going to be at a totally different stage. I can't buy this time back.
Yeah.
Right? So retirement tells me I have to wait 20, 30, 40 years, depending on how old I am today, to start living when life is happening today. And I will never regret spending time with her, but I will regret not spending time with her. And it was because that was the moment. I literally remember this, Michelle. I went to my office and I told Russ, my business partner, I was like, we got to create passive income today. Like this is before I knew all this stuff. I'm just saying. And I was like, this is a must. It's because I don't never want to tell my daughter I have to go to work. Right. So I don't know. I'm just sharing these things because these are really impactful for me.
Well, and this is how people start to understand their relationship with money. When you're saying, I have to do this, as it's something you don't want to do, but you've got to do it, you're trapped. That's when we start, honestly, that's when we should start just asking ourselves questions. It's as simple as that. It's like, I always try to equate money relationships with other relationships. So if you're saying, oh my gosh, I have to see my boyfriend tonight, I wish I could be with my girlfriends, but I have to do this. I mean, you have to spend a minute thinking about why do you feel that way? Why are you using those words? And where is this going? I mean, is it just is this a habit that's going to continue for 20 more years? I mean, so it's interesting. I think if we think of it that way, because people tend to want to run away from, I mean, you could have done that too. You could have been like, I don't want to think about this. I'm just going to shut this down right now, what I have to do. And I feel like we don't we don't get introspective or whatever and give this thought like you did. And it changed your life thinking about that. And that's really, we should be open to these transitions. And, in my dad's day, to go back to that, there weren't a lot of options at least within the, paradigm of how he thought. And so you did what was prescribed. And now we live in a world where we do have options. You're, educating people around those. And we should stop and ask ourselves, could this be better? Could this be a way out?
I have actually a question for you in light of that, Michelle. So you're constantly helping people understand their relationship with money. Do you find that people just don't know how to dream anymore?
That's a great question. I find that in many areas. I found it a lot with people, high-level executives who wanted to transition or were forced into a transition. And you would ask them, I mean, since the time I started coaching, the question, what do you want, is literally the hardest question for people to answer. I mean, yeah.
We found the same thing. When we've talked people through a passive income operating system, one of the first things is, what would you do if you were financially free today? Very few people can even think about, like, they can't even imagine what that would be like. And I will just tell you, that is one of the first things. We talked about having your why. Your why starts with, a lot of times, just thinking, what am I passionate about? What would I be doing if I didn't have somebody else's schedule outlining for me what I had to do every week?
Yeah.
And so it's just amazing to me, if you can stop and dream a little bit, give yourself the license. Like when you were 4 or 5, you could dream all day long.
Yeah.
Today, go back to that. What could I be doing? And that may be like the spark that ignites, like, I got to do something different with my money, because I'm not going to change just for change's sake. I got to change to accomplish whatever I was. And I think of it as impact.
Yeah.
What impact can I have? And it's going to, maybe be uncomfortable. Like I left a career making over $300,000 a year to go start from scratch.
Right.
And it was because I was anchored in this idea that this is going to be more impactful for people than just helping them with a mortgage transaction.
Yeah.
Right. That was good. This is better.
I love that you're talking about this. It is so important to think about this. And what I find too, and I'll ask you if you find this, is when people do start dreaming, they honestly dream pretty small. Like you think everybody's like, I'm going to make $1 billion. No. And the $1 billion thing is ridiculous to me, because like if you actually costed out what you want and then you put numbers to it, oftentimes it's not even $1 million, let alone $1 billion. But but I also find it's very evolutionary. Like you start out with a dream that feels like a stretch, but objectively somebody looking at it would think, oh, that's not a very big dream, but that's okay. And then as you kind of level up. I have a business mentor who talks about, new devil, new level. And it's always, or maybe it's the opposite. I can't remember. I think that's it. But it's always that way. And I think once you start exercising that dreaming muscle, you start doing it better. I actually had something came to me yesterday as an idea for myself, and I'm like, whoa, that's like bigger thinking than I'm used to. And I'm trained in this. I try really hard to think, to do vision and revision, but you get to points where suddenly you realize you've been thinking too small. And probably when you started this, I don't know what you were doing when you started the passive income thing, but I don't know if you were thinking of completely replacing, income, high levels of income or not. And maybe, I don't know.
Well, to be honest, my exposure to what was out there was growing. And so I was starting to get more and more confidence that was possible. But it was a long way off. I can assure you.
Yeah.
But I think, to your point, and I don't want to like totally get off track, but I will say that's why we have coaches in our lives, like you, with helping people understand their money. Some people are just at a plateau, and if they don't have that outside, source, that outside objective person who has a different perspective, like I need to stand on someone's shoulders to be able to see what they see. And so anyways, I think it's super valuable what you're doing as a result. The same thing is true with like our passive income operating system coaches. They're helping people to see what's possible, because sometimes they just don't quite see it. I liken it to being in a tunnel. You can look at if you're at one end and you look out the other, you can see like this little bit of light.
Yeah.
But as you start taking steps towards it, what happens? The light becomes bigger, because the end of the tunnel becomes closer, and all of a sudden it was always there. It's not like there's new information or new, things. The actual end result was always there. You just didn't have the right perspective to see it. Yeah. And so you take these steps, you start putting these things into action. I mean, I'm very open, honest about my process. I just started putting money into these policies to learn, like to have money at my access. I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was going to lead to $50,000 a month in passive income. I didn't know it was going to lead to a podcast. I didn't know any of that. Yeah. But I just took a step, the next right step that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so anyways,
I love that term. This is fantastic. I hate that we're out of time, but we are. Actually went a little long, but tell people how to contact you, learn more. I mean, this is a topic I can't think of really many people who don't want to learn about passive income. And it's not something we're taught about, and you might see somebody doing it, but so this is fantastic that you're actually helping people to accomplish this.
Well, we're excited to help the person who's motivated to do this and take action. They just need a system, and then they need training, right? They need system, they need training. And so we're happy to help people with that process. If you go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/money in you, wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/money in you, you can take a free quiz. There's a couple of free resources. All my contact info's on there. I just love when people reach out to me and tell me, hey, I heard you and Michelle talking on Money in You. Just let me know that to give me some context, and our team will be thrilled to work with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that offer. And I really want to say, if you loved this podcast with Joey, we also, when you contacted me, I remembered the website, The Wealth Without Wall Street, and realized that we had your partner, Russ Morgan, on a while ago, actually. So I'll put in the show notes his show, and between the two of you, the audience can learn a little bit more as well. But
Well, please let me know that mine was better than his. We're always competing, and so I appreciate.
I think you did a great job talking about some mindset things that I love talking about. So I think you'll actually get a pretty different show for both of you. So this is great. Yeah, Joey, thank you so much. This has been very, very interesting. There's so much more to talk about. I think we touched on one passive income stream out of how many that you help people with?
There's at least 16 to 20 that we personally do. So
okay. All right. Absolutely. Well, that's a reason to grab that quiz and contact you as well. So thank you so much. Wealthwithoutwallstreet.com is your website. And I'll be getting this out there, and I so appreciate you coming on. I think this was interesting on so many levels. So you really help people see the why around this, which I find really important. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Likewise, it was a great time.
Okay. Well, thank you. And thank you, audience, for joining us on another great episode of the Money and You Show. We love having you listen to the show. We hope you continue to do so. Subscribe, leave us a rating and a review, share it with your friends. I know you know people who need to hear this show. So please share it. And we are so grateful. And thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next week.